Liftoff.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Movie Review Podcast. I'm your host, Terrence Fisher, and today we are going to be talking about Avengers Endgame. And I'm going to be giving my non-spoiler review and spoiler review. So those of you who haven't seen the movie yet, you don't have to worry right now. I'm going to talk about the movie in a non-spoiler kind of way, just generally speaking. I'm not going to give anything away, anything like that. And then when I get ready to get into the spoiler review, I'll put the spoiler alert up on the screen so you'll see it and you'll know not to watch this part. Just click off of it, come back when you've seen the movie, and we'll discuss it then. So let's jump right into it because there's a lot to talk about. First thing before we get to that, I want to talk about a couple of things that I'm doing here on the channel. So I'm doing a giveaway, and in order to get into this giveaway, well, let me tell you what I'm giving away first. So first of all, I have these Avengers Endgame posters. So check these out. So if you're listening on the podcast, you can't see these now, but they are basically Avengers Endgame posters. It has Hulkbuster on there with Rhodey, Black Widow, who's that, Iron Man, and then a couple of the other characters on there, and it has this thing that says Avenge the Fallen at the top. Really cool posters, and I have about 10 of these I'm going to give away. And then also I have this really cool Avengers t-shirt that I'm giving away as well. So this is the Avengers t-shirt, and again, this is if you're watching or listening to the podcast, I know you can't see this shirt, but it's a really, really cool t-shirt. It's a bluish t-shirt, has some of the Avengers on there, the Avengers logo and stuff at the bottom. It's a really cool shirt, so if you're looking on here, you can actually see it there. But I have 5 of these I'm giving away. Now, all you have to do to be a part of this giveaway is just subscribe to the YouTube channel or subscribe to the podcast. And on next week's episode, I'm going to pick somebody randomly to give these away to. Again, 10 posters. 10 posters, 5 t-shirts. So I got about 15 things I'm going to give away. So I'm just giving those away randomly. I'm going to pick some names, put the names into a digital box and have it draw a name, and then, or draw the 15 names and then give them away. All you have to do is subscribe to the YouTube channel and to the podcast. All right, so that's what's going on. So now let's get into Avengers Endgame spoilers and non-spoilers first. So I had my first screening on last night, and I got to tell you, let me open up my notes here because I took some notes here that I'm going to talk to you guys about. So, oh my God, overall, this is a really good film. And we're just talking about non-spoilers right now, so you can stay tuned in if you haven't seen the movie. Overall, really, really, really good, solid film. So the thing I liked about the film, one of the things I liked about the film the most is the relationship between the characters are still there. So you have these relationships that have evolved throughout the movies between the characters and how they operate with each other. And those relationships are still there intact, and they've evolved. You see them in sort of like this new light and this new sort of era or game that they're in now, the end game that they're in now. So that's one of the things I really liked about that. Now, the other thing is the story arc coming from Infinity War, because Infinity War was the movie that led into Endgame, or that's leading into Endgame. And that's, by the way, that's the movie. If you're wondering, if you're not really that big of a Marvel fan and you haven't seen a lot of the movies and you haven't seen Avengers Infinity War, that's the one you're going to want to watch before you watch Avengers Endgame. That gives you all the context for the movie. But so, the story arc carries over very well from Avengers Infinity War. Like, everything that happens in Endgame makes sense. It makes completely good sense. It's almost like Infinity War and Endgame were one and the same movie, just a really, really, really long story broken up into 2 movies. So I really like that. And if you're a fan of these movies at all, if you're a fan of the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and any of these movies, you're going to have a couple of geek out moments in here where he's going to be like, oh, crap. Oh, did that happen? Oh, my God. Wow. You're going to be doing that a couple of times in this movie. And I tell you what, if you are like a hardcore comic book fan, and you follow this stuff not only through the movies but throughout the comics and throughout your life and stuff like that, you grew up with comic books, you are going to absolutely spaz out, man, at some moments in this movie. It's one of the most, I'm trying to get into it without giving away spoilers. So just know you're gonna spaz out. It's gonna be some moments where he's like, wow, oh crap, did they really just do this? Oh my god, look at that. How did that happen? It's gonna be a lot of those moments in there. So that's one of the things I really, really, really liked about it. Now the movie again is 3 hours long. I'm sure you've heard by now. It's a 3 hour long movie. So one of the things you're gonna have to make sure is that you go to the bathroom before you go to the movie. There are a couple of spots during the movie where you may be able to go take a bathroom break, particularly during the second. So there's 3 hours in the movie. So the first hour, you're probably not going to want to miss anything. Around maybe like the hour and 30-minute mark. So during the second hour, like halfway through the second hour, that's probably your chance to go take a really, really quick break. Maybe 2 or 3 minutes, go run to the bathroom, wash your hands, come back, whatever, because you're not going to miss anything. But do not, I repeat, do not go anywhere in that last part of the movie where everything starts to build up. Do not leave your seat. I'm telling you, you're not going to want to miss anything during that part of the movie. It's the most intense hour, 45 minutes or whatever, however long it was. It's the most intense part of a movie that probably exists today. So, make sure you go do that. Make sure you pee beforehand, go to the bathroom, whatever you have to do. Don't drink too much and all of that stuff beforehand. So overall, again, the movie is a really, really good movie. It's a good, solid movie. My score for it on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the highest and, of course, 1 being the lowest, is I give it about a 9.5. And the only reason for the 9.5 is because there were a couple of moments in the movie where I was just like, it kind of felt like a slow burn. And I was like, can we get on with it? Can we move this along a little bit? You know what I mean? So there were a couple of moments in the movie that were like that. So, but besides that, I didn't see or I didn't experience. And even in those moments that was like that, it wasn't a thing that like took me out of the movie where I was just like, oh my God, like this is just not going to work. Like, please get on with it. It wasn't like that. It was just, a feeling because you're sitting there so long and it's like, okay, like, and then you're anxious to see what's going to happen too. So, again, that's my score. It's a 9.5 out of 10, just simply because it was just a couple of moments like that. All right, guys. So now I'm about to get into the spoilers of the movie. I'm about to talk about the movie from the spoiler perspective. So if you have not seen the movie and you don't want any spoilers, please click off the video, click off the podcast right now, come back and listen or watch this part once you've seen the movie, because I don't want to spoil anything for you. There's a lot of stuff to be spoiled in this movie that you're probably not going to want to know. It's going to take away from the impact of the movie if you know it before you go into it. So again, I'm forewarning you now. Here's your last warning. These are spoilers coming up. All right. So let's get into it. All right. So, oh my God, man, this movie is exceptional in so many ways. The movie starts, and I'm not going to go through, the movie necessarily part by part, but there are some particular parts I want to talk about. So the movie starts with Clint, so Hawkeye. It starts with him and his family, and you kind of suspect what's going to happen. Him and his daughter, his wife and his daughter, they get taken away by the snap that happened in Infinity War. He's outside shooting a bow and arrow with his daughter. They're about to have lunch or dinner or whatever it is. And then he looks up and then, he sees ashes and they're gone, right? So you have Clint, you have Hawkeye, which is a broken guy. And he eventually, because of that, he becomes the character called Ronin. So that's why you'll see him in the film. And you've seen him in the trailers with a sword. His name is now Ronin. That's what actually happens in the comic book as well. So that follows that storyline from the comic book pretty well. But, and I thought that was really important because we hadn't seen Hawkeye. We didn't see Hawkeye in Infinity War at all, right? So this kind of gave us the idea of where he was, set up his story arc, let us know why he was hurt, let us know why he was becoming Ronin and stuff like that, right? So, after that, we start with sort of these broken Avengers, right? Like the Avengers, they're kind of broken. They're in this, oh my God, they're in this era where they're all just like they feel defeated. They've lost to Thanos. Thanos kicked their butts in Infinity War. They lost. He snapped, and half the universe is gone. Half the people in the universe, people they love their families, and all of that stuff is gone. So, Tony, Iron Man, he's really broken. He's just pretty much given up. He's saying, forget it. I'm done. No more Iron Man. Me and Pepper Potts, we're married. We have a child, and I thought that was cool too. So Pepper and Tony have a child in this movie. They actually have the child, not like she's pregnant and then she has a child. They actually have the child, and she's an older child in this movie. So I thought that was pretty cool. But he's, giving up. He's concentrating on his family. He's like, man, forget this Iron Man stuff. I'm done. We lost. That's that. Whatever. There's nothing I can do about it. So he's broken. He's in this sense like, just forget it all. And then you have Natalie, which is, or Natalia. Natalie or Natalia? Nat, that's her name. So Black Widow. And she's really broken. She's in this state where she doesn't really know what to do, because really outside of the Avengers and with Nick Fury and all of that stuff being gone, she really doesn't have a purpose. Like, that was her whole life. The Avengers was her whole thing. So she's spending time. She's trying to, figure out ways, trying to, think of what she can think of to, help the Avengers out and see if there's any trouble and anybody needs saving. There's nothing really going on. So she really feels like she doesn't have a purpose, right? And so then you have people like Captain America. You have you have a Captain America where he's lost hope, but he's still trying as well. He's still trying to, manage. He's still trying to figure out, ways to get everybody back and all of the kind of stuff. But he's still broken. He's pretty much lost hope. You can see it in his eyes. He probably has the most hope out of everybody that's still remaining, but you can still see it in his eyes. It's like, man, he's just pretty much like, this is just not it. And Thor. So Thor is like the worst. Thor is like the funniest one as well. Thor is giving up hope in this way that is kind of like what we do here in the real world. When people lose hope and they give up and they go to drinking and alcohol and stuff like that. So basically Thor is this like alcoholic, and it's very funny. They show him and he has this big beer belly, and he's out of shape and all of this kind of stuff. It's like the funniest thing, but he's giving up hope too. He's just like, man, you know what? We've built, we have these Asgardians that are now on Earth. So they've built this sort of community of Asgardians, that what's left of the Asgardians, and they just have this like community, and he's like still the leader of it, I guess, but he's still like a drunk, and he's up in his, shack or whatever, and they're playing video games and all that kind of stuff. So it's really, really funny, but it's really cool to see, the Avengers, this is what they went through after being defeated by Thanos. So all in all, they go through all of this stuff, and it's like, they finally figure out a way to, time travel and get the Infinity Stones back. And I'm skipping some stuff, but they figure out this way to get the Infinity Stones back, which I think is really, really cool. And how they do it is probably one of the best recaps of movies, I think, in cinematic history. Like, where they start to recap all of the stuff that happened in the previous Marvel movies, from like Captain America, from the other Avengers movies, from 2014, from 2012, all of that kind of stuff, right? And they go back to these particular moments in those movies, like during the scenes. So you have like the Captain America going back to Captain America's scene in, the first Avengers movie, and then he's, taking one of the Infinity Stones or something like that. Like, and it's like the coolest thing ever. So they kind of remind you what happened in the past movies, and also take you forward by showing you how they're getting the Infinity Stones back. So I thought that was really, really cool. So long story short, they get all of the Infinity Stones back. Each of the Avengers go to. Okay, well, let me back up. So Captain America convinces Tony, and then Tony figures out a way that they can time travel, and then he gets on board and says, "Okay, let's do this." And then that's when they go through the recap thing. So anyway, after that, they figure out a way to get all of the Infinity Stones back and all of that kind of stuff. And it's like, they finally get all of these Infinity Stones back. They get them, and they figure out how to use them. They figure out how to do the snap and whatever. So they do the snap. Thanos finds out that they've traveled back in time, and then he's going, using that as leverage to defeat them and all of that kind of stuff. So basically, they go up. Thanos is really the villain again in this movie. Like, Thanos is still the villain of Avengers. Like, he beat them. Thanos beat them in Infinity War, and he's about to battle them again in Endgame. So I thought that was really cool. So again, this is a big continuation story. So they get all the stones back, and they go up against Thanos and all of this kind of stuff. And what ensues, I'm telling you, is the biggest and hugest and the most exciting comic book fight in the history of comic book movies. And I don't say that lightly. When I tell you that when this movie kicks in gear and then they start to do all of this stuff, you know, because if you're watching this, you've probably seen the movie. When it kicks in gear, it's like, oh crap. Like this is about to go down. All of the snapped Avengers from Infinity War, like all of the ones who died, they should Spider-Man, Black Panther, all of them. What's his name? Captain America's sidekick. I can't ever remember his name. The flies with the guns. Anyway, he shows up. All of them show up. It's a spectacle to say the least. It's a spectacle on scene, and it's the most exciting thing that happens. And again, they all fight. They go up against Thanos, and they eventually get Thanos down. And here's the most emotional part of the movie, and you know what I'm about to say. And when I tell you there were people, and I kid you not, I'm not kidding. My best friend was sitting next to me, and we were kind of, we looked back because there were people who were sitting behind us that were sobbing, crying. And I'm not kidding. And I'm talking about like, it got to this moment and you heard the sniffles throughout the audience, all in front of us and stuff. You heard so you could tell people were crying, but there were people behind us that were sitting behind us that was really like, like really sobbing like that. And it was like the most emotional thing ever when Tony Stark dies. And to be honest, it made me a little misty eyed. I was like, no, not Tony. So in going into this movie, I'd already talked about, me and my best friend talked about outside the theater, like there's somebody in this movie that's going to die. And to me, I thought it was going to be either Captain America or Tony Stark, because to me that made more sense, just to go along with the story arc. And I think that would have created the most emotional impact, and it did. My first choice was Captain America. I thought it was going to be him, but it was Tony. And he died, basically he died by putting on the Infinity Stone gauntlet that he made from his Iron Man armor, and had all of the Infinity Stones in the local parts. And then he does a snaps, and then does the snap and vanishes all of Thanos's army, and then vanishes Thanos and all of that kind of stuff. And then because of course the power in the Infinity thing that he has is too strong, it actually pretty much kills him as well. Now, the thing about this is they foreshadow that power moment of this Infinity Gauntlet like early in the movie, because when they first get the stones, they're trying to figure out which of the Avengers is going to wear it. Hulk decides he's the one because he's the strongest and he's probably the one that can take it. And even when he puts it on and he snaps and he goes through this, like it's burning him up and burns his whole left side of his body and his face up, or right side of his body and his face up. He goes through this moment like, it's like, man, this is really powerful. So again, and you already know that whoever else puts it on can't handle it. So Tony puts it on, he does the snap at the end, and it basically burns up the side of his body and his face. And like the most emotional scene ever, Spider-Man comes up. So the emotional scene in Infinity War where Spider-Man is being snapped away and he's getting ready to turn into ashes, and then he comes up and hugs Tony Stark, Iron Man. He comes up and hugged him saying, I don't want to die, I don't want to go, I don't want to die. And that emotional part, that's a key moment in this movie, because Tony is feeling, throughout this movie, he's feeling responsible. He's feeling, bad about Spider-Man dying, because Spider-Man was basically in his care. So when Spider-Man shows up for the first time in Endgame, basically Spider-Man comes up, hey, Mr. Stark, how you doing or whatever, and then Tony comes up and hugs him. And that's like the most emotional moment ever too. So I thought that was pretty cool. But when Tony dies at the end, and then Spider-Man comes up and he's like, no, Mr. Stark, no, don't die, whatever. And then he, Pepper Potts comes up, Iron Man's wife. She comes up behind him and gives him, I think, what's probably one of the most important speeches, or one of the most last words that you can say to a person who's dying. And I'm just saying that, but to me, I thought it was very classy the way they handled this in the movie and the way that she did this. So instead of her coming up and crying and saying, "Oh no, my God, Tony," like you would expect a wife to do, "Don't go, don't go. Oh my God, Tony, no." Like, it's not that. It's not. They're not milking it like that. She comes up and smiles and kind of, grabs his face and said, "Tony, it's okay. You can rest now." And I thought that was, man, I'm getting choked up even thinking about it. I thought that was a really, 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 really emotionally cool moment. And it was like, God, like, look, out of all of the stuff she could have said, and then of course she cries afterward, after he, sits there and he kind of passes away. She cries or whatever. But, during his last breaths, that's what she tells him. So anyway, like I said, the emotional impact of this movie alone, if you have any sort of investment in these characters, any sort of liking, you don't even have to be a big comic book fan. If you just got to know, man, okay, I really like Iron Man, and then you see him die, man, I tell you that it's emotional, and I kid you not, it's not a joke. I'm going to see the movie again for my second time tonight, and I'm looking forward to seeing what people's reactions are going to be again tonight, seeing it for the first time, because I'm telling you, when it got to these sad moments, it was silence in the movie, and there was nothing but sniffles. People were crying and people were sobbing, and it was like the saddest moment ever. Marvel has really, really done a good job with creating a saga of these movies over the past, because this is the 22nd film. It's been 22 films, and they have done a really, really, really outstanding job. So my hat goes off to them. I tip my hat to them with creating this story arc from, throughout 22 movies, and this movie sort of ending that saga. So, and I'm a DC fan. I prefer DC over Marvel. We can debate about that all day, but Superman is still the greatest comic book character of all times. There's no debate about that, period. So anyway, but even with me, a diehard DC fan, I will not ever deny greatness in other comic book movies. And this is greatness, guys. This is really greatness. This story arc that they've done throughout these 22 movies have been nothing short of amazing. Nothing short of amazing. And Endgame right now, as I'm sitting today, is already breaking box office records. It broke the Thursday night preview night opening record. I think it made about $60 million opening preview night, which is about 3 or 4 million more than I think the other record was Infinity War. I think the Infinity War had the Thursday night preview night opening record, and Endgame has broken that already. So it's already breaking records. It's going to do well financially and all of that kind of stuff. And of course, this leaves the question of, okay, so now what's going to happen with the Avengers and all of these characters? So as it stands, of course, they're talking about moving into the phase 4, or their phase 4. Again, just another way of arbitrarily labeling their sections, how they're sectioning off the movies. And basically what they're talking about is that they're going to be a new set of Avengers. They're going to be a whole new team of Avengers, just like there was in the comic book. All of the teams and all of the comic book characters, they evolve, they die, they come back in other forms, and all of this kind of stuff. So who knows? We still may see Captain America and Tony again. And that's one of the other things I didn't talk about at the ending of Endgame, where we see Captain America, where he's basically trying to take the Infinity Stones back to where they came from. And, he does that. He goes through time, but then he decides that he's just going to skip forward in time or whatever, or then he's going to live this life throughout this thing. And then he shows back up in this spot, and he's this old man. And it was so funny. My homeboy that was with me, when Captain America shows up, he's like, man, he looks just like Joe Biden's. And it was like the funniest thing in the world, because he actually did. But then Captain America's like this old man now. So, and then he passes on the shield to his partner, right? His name slips my mind right now. So his partner, the one that flies, has the wings or whatever, the black guy, I never can remember his name. Anyway, and I thought that was the coolest thing. So we're moving into a new phase of Avengers. We'll have somebody else will be Captain America. Somebody else will, take over the Iron Man, maybe Pepper Potts, because we even saw Pepper Potts show up in an Iron Man suit in this movie. So maybe she'll take over. Maybe it'll be somebody else. There'll be some new characters, some new Avengers and stuff coming in, and that's where we're going from this movie. So anyway, guys, this is my take on Avengers Endgame, and again, my score on it again is a 9.5 out of 10. I mean, it's nothing short of amazing. It is nothing short of amazing. I hadn't seen this many people be this emotional in a movie since Titanic. And I remember Titanic back in 97. So that's been over 20 years ago when Titanic came out, and we were in the movie theater. And, you know, when Jack dies in Titanic and people were sobbing, it's literally on that level, probably to a greater extent, but it's really on that level. And I have not seen this type of emotion in a movie since Titanic. But anyway, so again, that's my review of this movie. I know we went kind of long today in this show, but I really wanted to dive into this movie because it deserves it, guys. This is a movie that, again, is nothing short of amazing. It's nothing short of amazing. If you're on the fence about going to see this in a movie theater and fighting the crowds and all this kind of stuff, don't even give it a second thought. You need to see this movie in the theater. You need to be there to experience it. And you need to be there with the crowd to experience the crowd participation and the emotion and the energy in the room that comes from watching a movie like this together. It's nothing short of amazing. I'll say that, you know, until the movie stops playing. It's nothing short of amazing. But anyway, I'm curious to know what you guys, if you've seen Avengers or if you're looking forward to seeing it, you know, what you think about it, what score are you giving it? What parts hit you the most? Leave some comments on this video. You know, again, if you're deciding to comment on spoilers and stuff, don't spoil anything in the comments. There are still people who may be watching this or listening to this who haven't seen the movie yet. So we can kind of talk about those things, you know, after the weekend where everybody has had a chance to see the movie already. So don't spoil anything for people, please. Please just don't spoil anything. This is one of these movies you don't want to be a butthole and spoil things for people for. All right, so guys, we'll end it there. Thank you again so much for watching this, you know, review of Avengers Endgame. As usual, if you have not subscribed to the channel, make sure you go do that. Make sure you hit like and, you know, all of that kind of stuff, and leave some comments on the videos. That helps me know what you want to see and all of the kind of stuff. And of course, I'll be doing the giveaway within the next week of the t-shirts and the posters. So I'll be giving those things away. So you'll want to make sure you subscribe. I'm going to just, you know, digitally pick some names from random to give those people out or give those things out. Okay. Also, you know, subscribe to the podcast. If you have not, the podcast of this show is available on Google Podcasts, Apple Music, Stitcher, you know, Spotify, all of the podcasting networks. So you can go subscribe on there as well. So make sure you do that and comment and let me know what you thought about Avengers Endgame. And I will talk to you in the next episode.